The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm, golden hue over the small town of Elmwood, where the streets were lined with modest houses and the air carried the faint scent of freshly mowed lawns and distant barbecues. Daniel Hargrove navigated his old pickup truck through the familiar roads, his 5-year-old son, Ethan, bouncing excitedly in the booster seat beside him. It was Saturday afternoon, their sacred time together, a ritual born from necessity after the world had tilted on its axis 2 years prior. Lila, Daniel's wife and Ethan's mother, had been taken by a sudden illness, a rare cancer that struck like lightning and burned out just as fast. In the wake of her absence, these outings to Rosie's Diner had become their anchor, a place where memories lingered in the greasy aroma of fries and the sticky sweetness of milkshakes. Daniel glanced at Ethan, whose curly hair bobbed with each bump in the road. The boy was a miniature version of Lila, with her warm brown skin, expressive eyes, and that infectious grin that could light up the darkest room. "Ready for our burger feast, buddy?" Daniel asked, forcing a smile to mask the ever-present ache in his chest. "Yeah, Daddy. Extra cheese on mine," Ethan exclaimed, his small hands clapping together. He was at that age where everything was an adventure, where the simplest things sparked unbridled joy. Daniel envied that innocence, wishing he could bottle it and sip from it on the nights when grief clawed at him like an unrelenting beast. They pulled into the diner's gravel parking lot, the truck crunching to a halt beside a row of motorcycles and family vans. Rosie's Diner was a relic from the 1950s, with its neon sign flickering open and chrome accents gleaming under the sun. Inside, the air was thick with the sizzle of burgers on the grill and the murmur of conversations. Booths lined the walls, their red vinyl seats worn from years of use, and the counter was dotted with regulars nursing coffees and pie. Daniel lifted Ethan from the truck and set him on the ground, where the boy immediately grabbed his father's hand. They pushed through the glass door, the bell jingling cheerfully above them. "Hey, Rosie!" Daniel called out to the owner, a plump woman in her 60s with a perpetual smile and flour-dusted apron. "Daniel." "Ethan." "The usual?" Rosie replied, her voice warm like the pies she baked fresh each morning. "You know it," Daniel said, hoisting Ethan onto a stool at the counter. As Rosie busied herself with their order, Daniel's eyes wandered the diner. It was busier than usual, with families chatting animatedly and a group of bikers laughing in the corner. Then, his gaze settled on a small figure in the far booth, a little girl, no older than 7, diligently wiping down a table. Her movements were precise, almost mechanical, as she scrubbed at spills and crumbs with a rag that seemed too big for her tiny hands. She wore a simple blue dress, faded and patched in places, her dark hair tied back in a ponytail that swung with each swipe. Something about her tugged at Daniel. She looked out of place, like a child playing at being an adult in a world that shouldn't demand such things from her. He watched as she stacked dirty plates onto a tray, balancing it carefully as she made her way toward the kitchen. Her face was serious, brows furrowed in concentration, and there was a quiet determination in her eyes that reminded him of Ethan when he was focused on building his block towers. "Daddy, look!" Ethan's voice pierced through Daniel's thoughts. The boy was pointing directly at the girl, his finger extended with the unabashed directness of youth. "She looks like me." Daniel blinked, turning to his son with a puzzled expression. "What do you mean, buddy?" "She doesn't really look like you." But Ethan was insistent, his eyes wide and earnest. "Yes, she does. See her eyes? And her smile? Like mine." Daniel glanced back at the girl, who had paused mid-step, noticing the attention. Up close, he could see subtle similarities, the shape of her eyes, perhaps, or the curve of her lips when she almost smiled. But her skin was lighter, her hair straighter, and she carried herself with a wariness that Ethan, thankfully, lacked. Still, children's perceptions often saw beyond the surface, finding connections in the intangible. "All right, maybe a little," Daniel conceded, not wanting to dampen Ethan's enthusiasm. He ruffled the boy's curls and turned back to their approaching food, but the image of the girl lingered in his mind like a half-remembered dream. As they dug into their burgers, Ethan's piled high with cheese, Daniel's with extra pickles, the diner buzzed around them. Laughter from the bikers, the clink of silverware, Rosie's banter with customers. But Daniel's attention kept drifting to the girl. She was back at it now, clearing another table, her small frame straining to reach the far edges. He wondered about her story. Was she the daughter of one of the staff? Why wasn't she playing outside or watching cartoons like Ethan would be? Ethan, meanwhile, was chattering away about his week at kindergarten, the finger painting, the new friend named Tommy, the caterpillar they found in the playground. Daniel nodded along, half listening, his mind elsewhere. "Daddy, can I have more fries?" Ethan asked, his mouth full. "Sure, kiddo," Daniel replied, pushing the basket toward him. As Ethan munched happily, Daniel caught sight of the girl again. This time, she was struggling with a heavy tray of glasses, her arms trembling under the weight. Without thinking, he slid off his stool and approached her. "Hey there, need a hand?" he asked gently, keeping his distance to not startle her. The girl looked up, her eyes wide with surprise. They were a deep brown, framed by long lashes, and in that moment, Daniel saw what Ethan meant. There was a resemblance, not exact, but enough to make his heart skip a beat. I'm okay," she stammered, her voice soft and hesitant. "I'm Daniel," he said, smiling warmly. "And that's my son, Ethan, over there. What's your name?" "Maya," she whispered, glancing over her shoulder as if expecting someone to scold her. "Nice to meet you, Maya." "You're doing a great job here," Daniel said, meaning it. She couldn't be more than 6 or 7, yet she handled the task with a maturity that belied her age. Maya's cheeks flushed slightly, and she mumbled a thank you before hurrying off to the kitchen. Daniel returned to his stool, where Ethan was watching with curiosity. "See, Daddy? She looks like me." Daniel chuckled softly. "Yeah, maybe she does, buddy." But beneath the light-hearted response, a seed of unease had planted itself. Why was a child like Maya working in a diner? Where were her parents? He shook his head, telling himself it wasn't his business. He had enough on his plate, running his auto repair shop, raising Ethan alone, keeping the bills paid. Their meal continued, with Ethan dipping fries into his milkshake and giggling at the mess. Daniel savored the normalcy, the way these moments patched the holes in his heart. But as they finished, Maya reappeared, this time sweeping the floor near the entrance. Her broom was comically large, and she wielded it with determination, pushing dust and crumbs into a neat pile. Ethan couldn't contain himself. Before Daniel could stop him, the boy hopped off his stool and trotted over. "Hi. I'm Ethan. You're Maya, right? Wanna play?" Maya stopped sweeping, gripping the broom handle tightly. "I can't. I have to work." "Work? But you're a kid like me." Ethan protested, his innocence shining through. Daniel approached quickly, placing a hand on Ethan's shoulder. "Sorry about that, Maya. Ethan just gets excited." "It's okay," she said quietly, resuming her sweeping. But Daniel noticed the way her eyes darted to the back of the diner, where a burly man, Carl, the manager, stood watching with folded arms. Carl was a fixture at Rosie's, a no-nonsense type who ran the place with an iron fist. Rosie owned it, but Carl handled the day-to-day, and rumors around town painted him as tough but fair. Daniel waved him over casually. "Hey, Carl. That kid, Maya, she's helping out?" Carl nodded, wiping his hands on his apron. "Yeah, her mom's one of my waitresses. Single mom, can't afford babysitters. Kid's gotta earn her keep somehow. Keeps her busy." Daniel frowned inwardly. "She's pretty young for that, isn't she?" Carl shrugged. "Times are tough. Better than her running the streets. Anyway, enjoy your meal. He turned away, ending the conversation. Daniel sat back down, but the exchange left a bitter taste. He remembered his own childhood, working odd jobs from a young age to help his family after his dad left. But even then, it hadn't been like this, not at 6 years old. Ethan tugged at his sleeve. "Daddy, why does Maya have to work? Can we help her?" The question hit Daniel like a punch. Help her? How? He wasn't a social worker, he was just a mechanic trying to hold his own life together. "I don't know, buddy. Maybe we can say something nice next time." But Ethan wasn't satisfied. "She looked sad. Like when I'm missing mommy." Daniel's throat tightened. Ethan rarely mentioned Lila anymore, but when he did, it was with that raw honesty that cut deep. "Yeah, maybe she is. But we'll see." As they paid the bill, Daniel slipped an extra 20 into the tip jar, hoping it would find its way to Maya's mom. Outside, the sun was dipping lower, painting the sky in oranges and pinks. Ethan skipped to the truck, but Daniel paused, glancing back through the window. Maya was still sweeping, her small figure silhouetted against the diner's lights. The drive home was quiet, Ethan humming a tune from school while Daniel's mind raced. Who was Maya? Why did Ethan see himself in her?